Have you ever noticed that sometimes life feels most alive when you stop trying to get somewhere? Moments where you forget yourself completely. You're creating, moving, laughing, loving, and for a moment, there's no grasping. There's no internal negotiation, just pure participation in life itself. And the mind returns then, and some narrative creeps in, something like, am I doing enough? What if this doesn't work? And suddenly the joy contracts. The experience becomes transactional. The moment becomes a means to an end. If that sounds familiar, then this week's teaching might help explain something profound about the nature of action itself and why so many people feel exhausted, disconnected, and trapped in cycles of striving. David, William, Pearce, welcome back. And this is one of the reasons that I have become so connected with tantric teachings, because they deeply corresponded to my direct experience of reality. They articulated things that I'd begun to articulate myself, but hadn't really found the words. And they began to explain things for me more clearly so that I could understand my experience better. And my intention with these transmissions is to simply pass that understanding on so that it can support you. Not to convince you of anything, but so that you might feel a little more understood in your own experience of life. So this week's teaching explores what Tantra calls Kriya Shakti, the power of divine action. In the Tantric view, this is the final culmination of consciousness expressing itself into lived reality. Because all the inspiration, wisdom, desire, creativity, and intelligence in the world ultimately means nothing unless they move into action. But Tantra makes a very important distinction here. Not all action is the same. And understanding this changes everything, or at least it did for me. Tantra differentiates between karma and kriya. Both words can mean action, but one of them liberates whilst the other binds. You've likely heard of the word karma. Karmic action is conditioned, transactional, attached to outcome. I'll do this so that I get that. Whether it's approval, validation, security, success, or countless other somethings, karmic action is action driven by grasping. And because of that, it binds us. You become attached to the result. Your emotional state becomes dependent on the outcome, and suddenly life stops feeling like participation and starts feeling like management. I think many people are living this way without actually realizing it. I know that I was. Exercise to finally feel worthy, work to feel enough, relationships to feel complete, and even spiritual practice can become karmic. Classes to gain social status, and meditation to become enlightened, breathwork to heal faster or chase a high. The action itself stops being alive because the mind is elsewhere, always chasing, always becoming, and never truly present. And Tantra says something radical. True freedom emerges when action becomes kriya, becomes kriyic. Action done for its own sake, pure expression, spontaneous participation in life, not because it gets you somewhere, but because something authentic wants to express itself through you. Think of a child petting an animal, an artist expressing, a musician lost in music, a man training because he loves movement, or a woman dancing because it brings her joy. All of this is not to attain, not to prove, not to secure identity, but simply just for expression itself. And paradoxically, this kind of action often becomes far more powerful because there's less internal friction, less resistance, less self-consciousness. Life begins moving through you more cleanly. And honestly, this is a huge part of the work I'm doing with men's transformational yoga, helping guys identify where in their life they've become overly driven by pressure, performance, and unconscious conditioning, to help them reconnect to action that feels alive again through movement, meditation, and embodiment practices. Not just more theory, but helping transformation become lived reality. So if that speaks to something inside you, head to the description on how to apply it to NTY. Okay, so one of the most beautiful lines from this week's study was this distinction. Karma is conditioned and conditional, whilst Kriya is unconditional and selfless. And honestly, I think this explains why so many people feel burnt out, because they're acting constantly, but rarely from genuine alignment. There's always an agenda, an attempt to become enough, to arrive, to secure something, and the nervous system never fully relaxes, because the moment becomes instrumentalized, and life becomes transactional. Non-dual Tantra points towards something deeply important here. That reality itself is already an expression of divine creativity. Consciousness expressing itself through form, which means your deepest nature is not fundamentally separate from life. It is life moving. And when action emerges from that recognition, there's less grasping, less force, less egoic contraction. Action becomes participation instead of compensation. So your contemplation for this week is to consider where your actions have felt heavy, pressured, or tied to needing a specific outcome. And where did you experience moments of natural, joyful, or wholehearted expressions regardless of the result? This teaching doesn't mean goals are bad or ambition is wrong or that discipline needs to disappear. Tantra isn't passive, but it invites a different relationship with action, one where the process itself becomes alive, one where your nervous system is no longer chronically contracted around outcome, one where life can actually be experienced while it's happening. So if this teaching resonated with you and you'd like to go deeper, there is a full quiz linked in the description. And if you'd like the answers, you can access them for free following the link in the description as well. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next transmission. Cheers.